morning, everyone, and thank you, Michelle, for the opportunity to present today to dynamic businesswomen. And this webinar this morning is about, is your business a crime scene? And maybe the title is why you have decided to have a bit of a listen today. You might think, oh, is my business a crime scene? And maybe that's a bit of a yes, maybe it's, I'm not quite sure. So hopefully after this webinar I've given you some ideas about how businesses do turn into crime scenes and how I've come up with that terminology, but also some ways to actually solve the case as part of that process. So let's get into it. So for those of you who don't know, I use the terminology business scene investigators. So of course you are then recruits in learning how to be a business scene investigator, and I'm going to give you some of those tools this morning. So we'd like to welcome you as recruits to becoming a business scene investigator. You might be thinking, well, how did that sort of all come about? Well, maybe like some of you, I really like crime scenes. I particularly like the CSI series, particularly the New York one, not so much the Miami one. I find that a little bit pretentious, but certainly like the CSIs. And what I found is that I found that there was lots of correlations between the processes that the CSIs go through in actually trying to work out and solve a crime scene and solve a case versus how businesses actually are. So what I did is that I went and did my CSI training, and as you can see here, here's me in the lab doing that, and got my diploma off Grisham, so I am a special agent tomorrow. But instead of going to crime scenes all the time, because sometimes that can be quite squeamish, what I actually said to Grisham was, hey, what I'd actually like to be is I'd like to be a designated business scene investigator. So I am the only one, but I am, as you can see, doing some recruiting and giving people the tools to become a business scene investigator, because I think it's really important that we're able to work out what's going on in our businesses. And I don't know about you, but maybe this sounds like what happens as a business owner, a manager, even just a staff member. But particularly for those owners, we're juggling so many things. We're juggling clients, business development work, our business proposals. We've got to do sales. We're working with our team. There's lots of phone calls, emails, admin, finance meetings, all of those type of things. And then there's this thing called sport, hobby, study. Maybe that's happening for you. Maybe it's not. We've also got family. Maybe some of you've got kids and friends and all that. And then there's a little thing over there called me time, and I know probably some of you are laughing at that and going, oh, I don't even have any of that tomorrow. And what happens is we're trying to juggle so many things. And for some of you, you might be all of those things if you're a sole trader, or you might be getting a little bit of assistance with some of that through outsourcing or through team members. But what we find is, how are we trying to juggle this all in one day, all in 1 hour? And then this thing called the unknown comes into play, and they're the things we just can't plan for, and they often can throw our to-do list out the window by about 9 o'clock. So what we've got to try and do is work out, well, how can we juggle these things a little bit more effectively so that our business actually doesn't turn into that crime scene that we have to keep solving all the time. So what are some of the tools, firstly, that you need as a good BSI? Well, firstly, we need to remember that we need to use gloves at all times. Remember, when we go to a crime scene, we've got to be very careful with that evidence, but also when we're looking at solving the cases at our businesses, oftentimes we're dealing with people, aren't we? So we need to be quite delicate in how we do that. Sometimes we can run a little bit roughshod over the people, but we need to be mindful that that evidence sometimes is the people and how they're feeling and what they're dealing with. And sometimes, remember, those people are us as well as that business owner. So we need to be a little bit delicate with ourselves and not beat ourselves up too much of, oh, the list isn't getting any smaller. We also need to make sure that we're shining a light on what's happening within our business. Too often we just look at the surface, but we need to, see what's really going on, look at all those nooks and crannies, and actually be real about what's happening with our business. The other thing we do, which complements that, is sometimes we've got to put on those ultraviolet lights. Sometimes we don't, we look at everything through rose-coloured glasses and go, yeah, everything's fine, everything's wonderful, but really it's not, because when we put on those ultraviolet lights, we really start to see what's going on with our business and probably start to realise, well, is this really how I want it to operate as part of that? As a BSI, we've also got to make sure we ask really good questions. Questions give us information, and so we need to be making sure that we're not only asking questions of ourselves and where our business is going, but all of those avenues around it. We also need to ask really good questions of our clients to make sure that we're meeting the brief and making sure that they are actually the clients that we want as part of that process. And finally, we need to make sure that we have really good evidence. And that really is about documenting things. And unfortunately, for many businesses, this is not what we do well. All the information stays in our heads because we're so busy doing, and we find that we don't actually document what goes on within our businesses. And that's really the systems. And as much as we think, no, we don't need to do that, it's just me, businesses won't grow, they're not sustainable, they're also not scalable if we don't have really good processes. It also means that we, by documenting things very well, then we've got much better evidence to come back from, whether that's, through our email trails or different things like that. So as BSIs, there's some of the tools that we need to make sure that we can solve the case. Because if we don't utilise all of those, it makes it quite difficult. Okay, so firstly what I want to have a look at is we need to see what the evidence is telling us about our business, people and our systems, because they're the three components that I look at to see how the business is actually venturing. So let's have a look at the business first and see whether maybe your business or maybe another business that you know, don't have to do a show of hands to say, oh, yep, that's me, whether your business is actually a crime scene. So let's have a look at the telltale signs. So often, initially, it's that the business is so busy doing. Maybe there's no plan. We just keep moving month after month, day after day, month after month, year after year, and there's no real planning that sits within that business. What are they actually really trying to achieve? Where is their purpose? What types of clients are they trying to attract? How are they actually going about it? Or is it just that they're reacting, and as a result, what happens is that when we react, we're just behind the eight ball. So we didn't see that competitor come in and take our market as part of that process. So oftentimes that can be a sign that your business is a crime scene. Not so much planning time, and as a result, very much behind the eight ball. Second thing we find is that, I really like this cartoon. I've had it for a really long time. But I need to find out if I'm working to live or just living to work. And that's when we pull the numbers together to make sense of it all. What are we really doing? For many of us, we set up our own businesses because we wanted freedom and we wanted lifestyle and we wanted flexibility. For me, I'm not the best employee. I get a bit bored with things sometimes. So I like the flexibility of working with different clients and the challenges that all that is within that, rather than maybe the same thing day in, day out. But that's not for everyone. But we need to figure out why we've actually got our business in the first place to make sure that we're achieving what we want out of it. And if we're not, then maybe it has turned into a crime scene under our nose, and how can we actually fix that? When we look at our people, and those people, remember, can be yourself as well. For me, sometimes I am the people causing, that my business is a crime scene. But what's the team around you? Whether you outsource that or whether you've actually got staff, sometimes they can be your crime scene. So what are the signs within that? Sometimes it's bad attitude, Those staff that, everything's a problem sometimes, constantly moaning about what's going on within the business or their lives, and they're bringing all that baggage in all the time, the bit of a Debbie Downers. So we need to have a look at what's the attitude of our people. As I said, when we talk people, that includes ourselves. Are we waking up and being really positive and energised even if we don't feel like it sometimes? Because not every day is rosy. I get all that. I can't be 100% happy 100% of the time. Stuff happens in our lives, in our businesses, that we need to manage as part of that. But it's really important that if we've got a really negative team or things going on, we need to probably delve within that, because, is it one person that's causing your people to be a crime scene? They go, oh, geez, I'm just so over that person or whatever. So what is it, the attitude that's really going on? Is it positive across the team? Is it not the best? Is it only one person? But, if everyone's snapping at each other, then there's probably some underlying issues that we need to investigate there. I think some of the time it's also, our people turn into a crime scene when they're too busy being the hare and not being the tortoise. Okay? Sometimes we're doing things so quickly, and what happens is mistakes. And I've seen it particularly in documentation. I remember one client I was working with, they had an administration officer, and they were getting very frustrated because she wanted more responsibility, but she was going through things very, very quickly, thinking that was okay, but as a result was missing things. And it was just lucky that the business owner also picked up a quote before it actually went out to the client, because instead of being a quote for $420,000, it was a quote for $42,000. That's quite a critical mistake. So it's really important that we check things, and sometimes we're too close to our own work, and whatever that might be, whether it's developing up presentations or developing up proposals, it's really important to get someone else to check that work. and make sure that we are a bit like the tortoise. Time and space is a really good thing. So sometimes walking away and coming back, have a look at things is really important. But if we've got too many hares running around, then we've generally got, people as a crime scene. Also got this thing, I've got an enlarge and procrastinate. For a lot of us, we procrastinate in different things. Sometimes it might be that the work, isn't as challenging as what we like. Maybe we're a bit over a project. Maybe we're just not sure what's going on. So rather than actually sit down and think, and investigate and use those tools I said to you before, sometimes it's better to go, just go and do something else. But we've got to deal with what's going on. Avoidance is not a good thing within our businesses. But sometimes we've got people that do that, including ourselves. So we need to see, are we procrastinating, and as a result our people are turning into a crime scene. Third part we've got to have a look at, because it's all balanced within our businesses. Those three components are quite critical to running a successful business. Got to have a really good business, and the structure and the processes and all that stuff that goes within that. Got to have really good people, which includes ourselves, and got to have really good systems. And this is the one that is often the most neglected and very quickly turns into a crime scene. I don't know about you, but maybe this is what your office looks like. Sometimes my office, not as bad as this, but I've certainly had lots of stuff from, on my floor and different things, particularly when I've been travelling a lot, and I come home and I just dump, and then as a result I can't think clearly. I need to declutter again and make sure that I'm back on track. So for those of you that work from home, that can be really tricky sometimes. Sometimes my husband will say, well, the office is where you should be putting all that, not the dining room table and the lounge room and all those type of things. And we're not saying that you have to have the neatest desk in the world, but it is very true that if you have a decluttered desk, then your mind is able to focus on things a lot more easily. You can really see what's going on. But we don't have to be making everyone into the everything's, a place for everything and everything's place. It's about balance as part of that process. But, and I've walked into businesses like this, not quite as bad, but pretty close, and, let's at least fix that first. Let's find out what's going on. And some of that is because of that procrastinate. Second part is we just make things too hard. We, instead of looking at the model, which is on the right-hand side of the cartoon, and making things really simple, we overcomplicate things. We put 27,000 processes in when really there's about 6 steps. Or we don't build checklists in that can make life a lot easier. So oftentimes when I look at systems, what I'm talking about is policy and procedures, and I find that not only are they overcomplicated, they're oftentimes written in text rather than maybe flow charts or using, as I said, checklists or templates to make life a lot simpler. They often have things like the scope of the policy is this, the purpose of the policy is this. Well, there's probably quite a bureaucratic and an old-fashioned way to write policies and procedures. You really just want to say this is how we do things and this is why. Policy is about why, procedure is about how, and what's the simplest and easiest way we can do that. Systems are often a crime scene because they are developed initially and then just left on the shelf. So I find the procedure manual and I've got to blow all the dust off it, which means it's not user-friendly, it's not being used, and therefore creates a high risk within the business, because what aren't people actually following and what's quite critical as part of that process. And the other thing could be that there's actually nothing written down at all. And as I said at the beginning of this webinar, it's really critical to do that. I know it's time consuming, I know it's an investment, and for many of you, it might be something that's your strength and you go, gosh, I don't want to write procedures. Then you need to get some help to actually get that stuff out of your head and put that in place, because businesses don't grow without really good processes. You don't have good succession planning if you don't have good processes, and you cannot sell your business without that. So it's really quite critical. Okay, so we've identified some of those key signs, key pieces of evidence about how a business and your people and your systems turn into crime scenes. So now we've got to have a look at what are the usual suspects. How does that come about in the first place? We know what the end result is, but it's often those usual suspects. So let's have a look at those. The first is this. The first is, well, we're just so confused. I don't know if that's, familiar within your team or even within yourself, but, just not sure where you're going, not sure what people are actually got to do. So particularly those that manage staff, or even if you outsource those, administrative tasks or finance tasks or things like that, people need to know what they have to do. If there's no clarity about what their role is, what their boundaries are, what their expectations are, then how do we expect them to actually grow within that role and innovate within the business? And how can we expect them to actually know and follow what they've got to do if there's nothing, as part of those boundaries? We often find when I go into businesses and there's a new staff member and say, oh yeah, how's things going? Maybe they've been there a month or a bit longer or something. And oftentimes what they'll say to me in confidence is, this is not what I signed up for. I got promised the world in an interview. I was promised that I was going to have this, sort of greenfield opportunity to come in and really shape this business in this management role or new staff role, things like that. And I just can't find anything. There's nothing here. I got sold a bit of a story. Or sometimes, as part of that conversation, they find that the CEO doesn't want to let go. Whether that's the business owner or you've got someone employed as a CEO or manager, they don't want to let go of, that control. But that's really important. We've got to trust that people can do things. But if we're not clear about what they do in the first place, then that makes life really tricky. And also as a business owner, if you're not clear about what your purpose is, where you want the business to be in, this year, 5 years, whatever it might be, then how do we expect anyone else to go? So one of the usual suspects is, just not sure. The second is technology. And technology is fantastic, and I think we all, love it, but I think most of us probably love to hate it sometimes as well. But I think some of this is around what your availability is and how you're using your technology. We've all, for most of us probably, have some form of a smartphone, whether it's an iPad or, Galaxy iPhone, all of those type of things. We're now available with email. We've got, Blackberries, all those type of things. It's not the case anymore where if you left the office, you had to wait to get back to the office to get your messages. Or you had to go to a payphone many years ago to actually ring into the office to see if anyone needed you. When you think about those days, although they were probably a lot simpler and in some ways people go, oh yeah, that was really time consuming, but did we deal with the most important things then? And are we dealing with the most important things now? I think sometimes we're not. Because a lot of times when we got back to the office, those problems were solved. If you're not contactable, then people step up to the plate and those type of things. So I think we need to really look at, how we can utilise technology in an effective way, but not have it drive our lives. Then the other component of those usual suspects is that, we're overworked in different ways though. Whether that's ourselves, but particularly those with staff members, a lot of times staff will go on a journey with you. The team will go on a journey with you, but they will only do it for so long. They will put in the extra hours up to a point. I've worked with a lot of businesses, including those in not-for-profits. And not-for-profits are a little bit different because, those people working in not-for-profits often have gone into that organisation because of the cause. And, they're willing to do whatever it takes for that cause. But unfortunately, sometimes the leadership and management makes it really difficult to work in those circumstances. And the expectation is, well, we don't have a lot of money, so we need to basically get our blood out of our staff. And at the end of the day, they lose those really good staff because everyone gets to a breaking point. And we need to look at what the balance is about people's capacity and also capability. And capacity is about how much they can do within those hours that we've given them. Also need to look at how we run meetings. I love this cartoon. We need to discuss tomorrow's meeting, decide what Thursday's meeting will be about, and the skeleton's going, Lord have mercy on my wretched soul. Yeah, let's have a meeting, but with no agenda and not good sharing within it. Meetings have to always start on time. And it's not about if someone arrives late that we spend the next 10 minutes catching the people up who were late for whatever reasons. And that's, may not be punctuality reasons, that may be just stuff happens. But that's what minutes are for, to catch people up. And if you put agendas out and there's pre-reading, then again, it's not spending half the time talking about pre-reading that people should have done and they didn't do because of the behaviour that's there. Set a really good meeting and decide how long it's going to take and what the purpose of the meeting is. Meetings oftentimes should really be about decisions, not about sharing of information. It's about decision making. Yes, you'll do a little bit of that, maybe your Monday team meeting. What's everyone got on this week very briefly? Top 3 things. Is there anything we need to help you with? And these are the outcomes that the business is looking to achieve over this week, and then off you go. But it's not a habit chat. You know, so it's really important that if you're running meetings that they're running to time, that they're really effective, and they're getting the outcomes that you actually want. If they're just meeting for the sake of meetings, you get rid of them. Our usual suspects is also about I don't have enough time. But the reality is we all have the same amount of time. It's just what we do with that time, isn't it? You know, it's really important we can blame time, but often it's about the choices that we've made, which has maybe limited our priorities. And I'll talk about that a little bit more. But we all have the same amount of time. It's just what we do with it and the choices we make within that. I think also too, particularly at a management level, and for those of you that have maybe gone from, if you like, the employee up to a management level, is that we want to be everyone's friend. Same with business owners. We want to be everyone's friend. And I think leadership and teamwork is really important, and fostering, you know, a really fun environment and all that, absolutely critical. But there are times at the end of the day where you have to have hard conversations with staff. You know, maybe they're not performing as well, and you've got to look at what the reasons are, making sure that the systems are in place and that they're very clear about their role and all of those type of things. But, you know, we can't just be everyone's friend. There's reasons why we own businesses. We have to make hard calls at the end of the day. There's reasons why we are employing really good managers, because they have to make hard calls at the end of the day. And it's making sure that we're very clear about that difference between, you know, management and staff sometimes, or even owners and management. Business owners won't tell managers everything, and nor should they have to, because it's actually your business at the end of the day. But the more you can loop people into the way that you want things done, and the outcomes you're looking to achieve, and sometimes the tough calls you're having to make and why, then you get a lot more accountability and buy-in as part of that process. May not agree with the decision that you're making, but at least they can understand some of why that is. But at the end of the day, it is your business as part of that process. I think also too, sometimes that usual suspect is our, you know, our what I call our BNA. You know, instead of our DNA, it's our BNA. What's your business about? Have you lost your passion in your business because you're just so busy doing? Oftentimes we set up, don't we? You know, we go, yeah, I really love doing, you know, for me it's presenting and facilitating, things like that. But, you know, if I'm so busy in the office doing other things that maybe I don't as much like, be it sales or marketing or where I've got different strengths, sometimes we lose what we're really there for as part of that. So it's really thinking about, and there's a lot of talk around it these days about what you're passionate about. But I think it's about why you set the business up. What's your point of difference? Why is it that you want a business? And what's the business model around that can actually make that happen, so that you actually start delivering again on, yeah, this is what my business is about. I'm really excited about it. Sometimes we lose focus and we need to get that back as well. So my thoughts now are, you know, that I've shown you a lot of those usual suspects, and again, I don't think there's anything where people go, oh, that's a bit of a new one tomorrow, you know, but I think sometimes it is about reflecting on it. And my question to you as part of this is, you know, have you actually created your own usual suspects? I think for some of us we do. You know, we might have all of those ones that I've shown you there, but we probably have a few. And it's really important to make sure that when we are really being honest and being a really good BSI and start delving within the evidence, we go, yeah, that was my call. So we'll look at some of that as part of that process, but that's just food for thought. Okay. So with business, as being a business scene investigator, being a really good BSI, there's 3 steps you really need to do. We need to follow the evidence, find out what's going on, use those tools. We need to find the suspects, find out what's happening. So the evidence will tell us something, then we've got to find out, well, how did that happen? And then, of course, step 3, we've got to solve the case. And through that, we ask lots of questions. So here's some ways of actually how we solve the case. The first is that we've got to eat our frog. So as you may have seen it before. If not, you can Google it. If you Google Brian Tracy Eat the Frog video, which is about 2.5 minutes, something like that, and the concept really is about that you've got to do the one thing each day that you don't really want to do, that maybe you've been putting off for a whole range of reasons. Get that frog out of the way and eat it. So if I won't go into it now, but if you haven't seen that video, just Google it, Brian Tracy Eat the Frog, about 2.5 minutes, and have a look at that. And it's really just about stop putting things off and do your frog every single day. It will give you momentum, it will give you energy, and you'll be amazed at how many frogs you can chip away if you just do that every day for a month and then go, wow, look how far I've come within my business challenges. Okay, so that's sort of an overarching thing. So now let's have a look at if we're going to solve the business case. So I've given you some of those evidence things. The first is that we need to say no. You know, I think too often we say yes to everything and then we get into that time poor capacity as part of that. And we think, well, hang on, you know, how did I get myself into this? You know, someone invites you to something and you think, oh, yeah, and you say yes, and then about 5 minutes later you look at your diary and go, oh, yes, well, that's going to mean this, or that means I can't go to, you know, my child's recital, or whatever it might be. Not saying that you have to say no to everything, but sometimes you do, or sometimes it's just about, look, can you just give me, I need to have a look at my diary and just see how that's going to fit in because I'm pretty booked up at that particular point in time. Time and space is a really good thing. So it's not saying yes straight away, but sometimes it's really important to also say no. Because if that's taking you away, if saying yes is taking you away from what your key activities are or your frog or different things like that, you've got to look at what that big picture is. Second thing is about, I'm very much about the threes. So you'll see that I've given you that I believe the foundations of the business are about having, you know, business, people and systems, 3 foundations. I'm all about doing the 3 things each day, the 3 priorities for the week, the 3 priorities for the month. It's not about overwhelming things, but it's looking at what are the 3 key things that I need to achieve today. What are the 3 key things I need to achieve this week to get me to my bigger outcome of this month, the 3 things this year if I can get those things done. It's not about having 27,000 things, it's about having 3 things because that will keep you focused. And those things might be just a couple of tic-tac items. Great, excellent, get those done, get some momentum. Because I think too often sometimes we write the to-do list which is just so long and we get, you know, those unknown things that I spoke about right at the beginning and then the list goes out the window. But if we think about the 3 focused key things, if I just get those things done, because other things will happen, you know, phone calls and, you know, clients and all different things, but if I just hit those 3 things today, if I make those 3 things happen, look how much better my business is going to be and it will help me get onto a bigger picture, growth for the year, all of those type of things. Okay, so here is also a bit of an idea. I'm not saying you have to do this or follow it, you know, to the letter or everything. What I really want to get across is the concept. So what I find, because there's just me, I don't have staff. I have a virtual assistant that I've just now outsourced who helps me with a few things, but I don't have a team around me. So I am it in terms of, you know, doing a whole range of things, the positions within the business, all of that sort of stuff. And I found sometimes that, not sometimes, quite often, that it's really hard to actually try and chip away at that concept of working on the business, so being quite strategic versus working in the business, because in the business is where you get the money. Doing the work is about getting the money. And we all have to do the work to get the money in, you know. And sometimes, you know, depending on where your business is actually at, you may not be able to outsource some things. And I absolutely get that. It's quite critical that you get the money in. But it's really important every day to still work on your business. So here is just one way of looking at this a little bit graphically, where you can try and chip away at some things. So here's, if you like, a bit of a weekly routine, and I fiddle around with this a little bit. I change it depending on my priorities, but the concept is what I work towards each week. So the first part is, if you look where I put that pink arrow, is that I am not out of the office every single day. So I've seen that particularly with service-based businesses. So if you're a consultant in particular, or if you have to go to clients all of the time, it's really looking at what are some of the days that you can spend at your office, wherever that might be, and then how can you, if you like, put as many client meetings and all of those kind of things out of the office all on the one day. Because it maximises time, it maximises travel time, travel expenses, all of those type of things, rather than being out every single day and then as a result you're trying to juggle things too much and then you might have to work late at night or different things like that. It's not always possible, I understand that, but if you can, it's trying to, you know, direct clients. So in this example, if a client rang me and said, oh look, tomorrow, you know, I'd like to see you this week, you know, is Tuesday an option? I'd be looking at my diary, and if I was available that week, I would direct them to try and book in on a Wednesday or a Thursday, because I try and keep myself in those other days. You know, it obviously varies, you know, your weeks vary, but you need to have some time in the office to get that stuff done. So that's the first component. Second component is looking at these key areas within the business. So this is sort of that on the business stuff. So what this is saying is each day I do a little bit to work on my business whilst I'm also bringing the money in. and whatever that might be. It might be, you know, I'm presenting, I'm facilitating, I'm writing some client work, reviewing materials, all of those type of things. But what this says is, okay, I need to do some work on sales, I need to do some writing, I need to write some articles, I need to write my newsletter, all of those type of things. I need to do some stuff around marketing, so I need to build up my social media, do some posts, make changes to my website, things like that. I need to do stuff around my systems, so I need to be documenting what my processes are as part of that to build up this business around my organisational structure. And in a lot of cases, the organisational structure is, you know, Tamara's name is in all of those positions or in many of them. But it's still about building up those processes. You know, there also needs to be some planning. What's my strategic intent? And I use that word intent rather than a plan, because we can plan to do anything, but an intent is, what's my 3-year strategic intent? I personally don't go out any more than that because the business environment may change, other environments may change. So I have a 3-year strategic intent of where I want the business to go and what that looks like, and then I have an annual business, yes, it is a plan because it's just easy terminology rather than business intent, but it's really business priorities. My annual business priorities are X, Y, and Z. And then I'll look at what my monthly goals are and my track for those, how do I work that. And then also looking at the accounts, not only doing, you know, some of that tactile data entry and things like that, but looking at where the finances are sitting at, where do I need to push, when do I need to pull, all of those type of things. Am I on budget? Am I on track? Those type of things. And then it's got some goals tacked onto those to try and give myself some little bit of a target that I've just highlighted there. Okay, then it's actually got a bit of a weekly plan. So what are the things I need to do each week? I need to do my frog. I need to also check my emails 3 times a day, and I've got some times that I actually do that, and I need to make sure my calendar and diary is up to date and I know where I'm actually going. I know for many of you, you're looking at that going, 3 times a day tomorrow, I can't do that, I'll never survive. But what we're finding is and the research is finding that productivity, you know, for people who actually leave their email on, you need to turn off all your reminders and not be distracted by email. So by checking it progressively 3 times a day, that enables me, firstly, before 10 o'clock, I get my frog done. I set my plan for the day, which I've often done the night before. I get my frog done, which is my key things. What do I have to get done today? Get that out of the way. Cool. Got that. Excellent. Then I'll get into, you know, some client work and get into my emails and see if there's anything that, you know, I need to actually address today as part of those, and then I turn all that off, shut all that down. If someone really wants me, that's why I have a phone. Okay, so it's really important about that. Then I have another look after lunch, and yes, it is important to break and step away from your desk, particularly, you know, whether you're at home office or at working at someone's premises or have your own premises. It's important to get up. You need to stretch, you need to revive. Time and space is a really good thing. And then I check it again at 4 o'clock just to see if there's anything that needs to be addressed before most businesses actually close. But again, my focus is about getting things done. It's not about looking at 27 emails that keep popping up and coming in, because by having a more proactive approach to email, it enables you to actually address the things that are most important rather than the things that aren't. Okay, so that just gives you a little bit of an idea, and the component within this is, I'm not saying that you have to spend all day on these things. How I start doing it, because as I said, you've got to bring the money in, got to do the work to bring the money in, is if you just set yourself a target of, if I just do this an hour a day. So if on whatever days work for you, these are sort of the process that works for me, but if I just spend an hour a day focused on sales, whether that's you need to write a flyer, maybe you need to make some phone calls, maybe you need to follow up some leads, whatever it might be. Writing, well, that may not be applicable for you, but there might be, you might have to develop a product or something like that. So you start to look at what those headings are appropriate to you. Writing works for me because that's the environment that I'm actually in. But I just look at initially of having an hour a day on each of those particular things, and I make it a meeting, and it's a not negotiable meeting. So just like you wouldn't generally move a client and all those type of things, that's what this is about. So when I'm planning my day, it's my frog, and then often it's this. And then I get into my 10 o'clock emails and that type of thing. So that's a process that where I can, It's not always possible when you're presenting workshops and stuff like that, you know, or for a whole day. But where I can, that's my process. Get up, right, get my frog done, get my on the business stuff happening for that first hour, and then I'm into, you know, emails, then client work, and off I sort of go. You can certainly obviously do more than an hour a day, and if you're able to, as you build it up, that's fantastic. But if you can just commit to an hour a day first, you will be amazed at how much you get done by the end of the month. Because you will have spent, you know, generally 4 hours on sales, 4 hours on writing, 4 hours on marketing, 4 hours on systems, 4 hours on planning, 4 hours on accounts at a strategic level that you weren't doing before. And that's the power that this concept can give you. So I'm not saying you have to, you know, copy it as is, but it's the concept that I really want you to take. The other thing too is that, you know, because I'm trying to give you some tools, is that maybe within, you know, I don't know if you've got whiteboards. I'm quite a visual person, so I use post-it notes and different things and colours and whatever. But again, it's just taking that concept. What have I got to do this week? There's my frogs that I would put up on my whiteboard, key priorities due that day, things like that. What's happening next week? So again, I'm trying to look at, am I doing things that will get me to achieving the things next week, this month, and next month? So I'm really seeing what that big picture is as part of that process. Okay, so also then thinking about within that is what's your time worth? So where I've talked about an hour a day, you know, imagine if you could streamline something that gives you back an hour a day. So depending on what your time's worth, I don't know if that's your hourly rate, maybe more, maybe less, but if you picked up an hour a day and then channeled that into working on your business, you know, you're then looking at $192,000 per year that you've just gotten back by changing one thing that can give you back an hour a day. If you tidy something, if you streamline an activity that gives you back an hour, that's what we're talking about. And this power of what your time is worth is also thinking about what can I, when I'm cash able to outsource so that I can be spending my time that's valuable on things that are really important for my business. So I've just recently engaged a virtual assistant, which is someone who is helping me with my social media, helping me with my postings and things like that, and also helping put my newsletter together. So I write the content, and then she's able to format that and get that going and things like that. Because it was taking me too long to actually do that. She's highly skilled, and I go, there, off you go. So it's really thinking about those things. Okay, how do we solve the people case? I think some of this is just around thinking people. You know, it's the simple stuff. So sometimes that's about thanking ourselves if it's just us, but if we have a team of people around us, when was the last time that you thanked them for just coming and doing their work? It's not about the extra stuff. I mean, that's great, and that's often what we do, but just thanking people for doing a great job in what they do. You know, you'd be amazed at what happens. You go, yeah, that was really great work this week. Thanks very much. Really appreciate your effort this week. They're still just doing the tasks that you ask them to do, but it's valuing them as part of that process. We spoke before about, you know, that we're sometimes too often the hare, and it's really about how can we get people to be the tortoise? How can we tell people and show them that we value the slowness? I'm not saying slowing things down just for the sake of it. That's not what I mean. But it is about the checking of the work and making sure that they're not just churning stuff out and then going, yeah, here you go, and then going, oh, hang on, yeah, that link doesn't work in that document, or there's lots of errors and all that sort of stuff. The tortoise concept is about quality and making sure that people understand what quality is always about. Sometimes they miss that. Okay, how do we solve the systems case? Little things. Not only is it your office layout and how things work, but it's how you file things, whether it's electronic or in a filing cabinet. For me, little things I have is I have a P-Touch labeler, and I don't get commission from them, but, you know, labeling things straight away, setting up files, labeling, you know, bookshelves and different things like that. I've got lots of different trays and that, but working out what's the purpose of that and putting a label on it. Label is really good. The other thing that's there on the right-hand side is that's actually the Brother label maker. And so for those of you that do envelopes and things like that, you may be still handwriting those. If you actually get one of those, and again, I don't have commission on it, but if you get one of those, they actually are just plug into a USB port, and let's say you've got a Word document open or you've got a mail merge, and sometimes, you know, merge labels in printers can be really, time consuming, and they jam and all those type of things. This enables you to print mail merges, and it just prints out on the label machine one after another. You just peel them off and put them on the envelopes. Or even if you're just doing one, oftentimes you can type quicker, and so you just type the address in and then press print, and it'll print, and it looks more professional and all those type of things. Not that expensive. I think it's less than $100 maybe, but again, it's about the image, and it's also less time consuming than having someone write envelopes all of the time. So that's just food for thought. Okay, when we're talking about emails or when we're talking about paper, it's often this is the process that we need to use. Do I do it? Do I diarise it? Do I delegate it? Do I delete it? So whether that's the paper that we touch, because we're trying to do a thing that we are only looking at an email once and actioning it using these 4 principles, and same with paper. If we're, rather than just, oh yeah, that's the action pending file, and we never get to it, or different things like that. So do you do it, diarise it, delegate it, delete it? Easy concepts. Okay, I'm just going to finish on a couple of things here. So I just want to give you an idea about how some really simple tools can work. So this is a client that I worked with. They were building designers, and what they had is they had open plan offices opposite the drawing table, and they had the CEO's office as well. And what was happening was that there was a lot of frustration within the office, because with an open plan office, people were walking in and out of people's offices all the time when they were trying to do concentrated work. People were walking into the CEO's office when they had clients. So they needed a bit of re-education about, manners and boundaries and all of those type of things. But they also needed a way to get some really good concentrated time to do their work without, impinging on the rest of the team. So I introduced this concept, and it's what I call my interruption toy. Very simple concept, and I said to them, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to introduce this idea of an interruption toy. So you come up with something that works for you. For me, I'm a Hawthorn member, so I'm very excited about the finals at the moment, and I also collect teddy bears. So I said, right, for me, my interruption toy would be my AFL bear. And what the concept is that you would put that interruption toy in your doorway. So even, I use this when I'm working from home as well. For myself, even though like I can shut my door and my husband doesn't interrupt or whatever, but it's also about focus. Okay, so there's a couple of rules with it. When you want uninterrupted time, and the deal within this environment is we didn't want people locked away for the whole day. So what we wanted was that they could, if they wanted, uninterrupted time, there was a couple of rules with it. Firstly, they had to put their toy out in their doorway, and what that was a visual to everyone, which was basically leave me alone. The second was that it could only be for no more than 2 hours a day to make sure there was still communication and people weren't shutting themselves off. And the third was that if you interrupted someone while they had their toy in the doorway, it meant that it couldn't wait the 2 hours, and it was actually urgent. And everyone went, oh yeah, okay, rightio. So they went away and thought about this, and they worked out what they were going to do. And what was happening initially was that there was still lots of frustration in the office, because people, were just getting used to the concept and all of that sort of stuff. So the business owner said, okay, well, I'm going to see if this actually works. So what he decided to do, he had a garden gnome as his little toy, so he put that outside his door. And he was amazed at what happened, because what he was finding was that people were interrupting him with questions that they really shouldn't have been, a whole range of things. But when he put his garden gnome outside his doorway, what he found was a few things happen. The first was that when people walked up to his office to go and see him, they saw the garden gnome, went, oh, and walked straight back. And then what they did was either they solved the problem themselves, they waited the 2 hours and went to the CEO with the problem and a possible solution, which is a much better outcome for a CEO and or management and or anyone really. And then thirdly, what they did is if they needed assistance, they actually went back to the team leaders who they were supposed to go to in the first place. So something that's a really simple concept can be great to actually not only set boundaries within an office environment, but give people focus, but put some rules around it. It only had to be 2 hours and things like that. But it's amazing how something that's fun, because it was. So, when I went there the next time, they had, one person had paper clips hanging from the ceiling, one person had a big dog, one person had a big car in their doorway, different things like that. So it adds to personality and fun. But it's a really useful concept for not only someone working by themselves, because what it says is for 2 hours, if I've got my toy on my top of my office desk or anywhere, that means I'm just doing that. and it's amazing how it does switch your brain to go, no, phone doesn't matter, nothing else matters except doing this particular work. And it also enables them, when you're in team environments, to get reporting relationships going and things like that. So I'm not sure if that's an issue for you within your business or office environment, but that might be a really fun way to do that. As I said, it's called my interruption toy, and I've seen it work. Okay, so just to finish off, in order to be a really good business scene investigator, we need to be, really mindful about when we say yes and what that means. We need to look at the leadership that we've got within ourselves and within our team, and have our team work together to work towards those ideal goals. So my final bits are, if you want to build a better business, firstly you've got to build really strong foundations. So you've got to have that equal triangle of business, people and systems. You wouldn't build a house without good foundations, but too often we build businesses without really good foundations. And often that can be your documentation, your policy and procedures, purpose, those type of things. Got to be the tortoise, not the hare. Got to have a weekly routine of some sort. Remember business etiquette. Not only thanking people, but, using mobile phones in meetings, all of those type of things. That no can be your best friend. That we need to accept the price. And that's really about, if we say yes to something, and that then means that, let's say we miss out on something with our family or our friends, we need to accept the price of that because we set it up. We're the ones that said yes. So we can't whinge about it by saying, oh, I haven't got time to do this now because I said yes to this. We have to accept that price. And that's really about thinking and stopping before we actually say yes to things. It's really important to have another set of eyes on our documentation and our business to give us different perspective. Sometimes we can get too close to everything and we get a little bit of tunnel vision, or sometimes we know there's a solution out there but we're really not sure how to bring that into the business, and so therefore just bouncing an idea off someone can provide different perspective. We need to deal with things and not avoid things. When the problem first arises or there's an issue, you've got to deal with it straight away so it doesn't turn into a really big problem within your business. We have to remember it's about them, not you. It's about our clients. It's about our staff. We need to write policies and procedures that are user-friendly. We need to write our websites and our marketing material for our clients and not in jargon. And we need to make profit and not just money in the bank. Just because you've got money in the bank doesn't mean you're running a profitable business, although many businesses try to tell me otherwise. Not necessarily true. Okay? We're not running a charity, you're running a business, so you need to make profit. You need to make sure that you're factoring in all of the costs that exist within your business. Okay, so to be a really great business scene investigator, eat your frog and shine the torch on what's really going on within your business. And so my challenge to you now is, so who's going to be the BSI in your business? Is it you? Or is it someone else? But there needs to be one, because every business needs a really great BSI. So thank you very much for your time, and again I would like to thank Michelle and Dynamic Businesswomen for the opportunity to present this webinar. I hope it's been really beneficial. Questions can come through via their Facebook pages and different things. This is the way that you can connect with me, phone and email. If you go to my website, you can sign up to my newsletter, monthly newsletter. You can also connect with me on my website via Facebook, LinkedIn and Twitter, and I also have my own Twitter hashtag, which is Strictly Business, BSINESS. So thank you very much for your time and have a wonderful day.